All right. Well, happy 420.
Happy 420.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, yeah, I'm a friend of, so I'm a friend of the 420. I'm a friend of the 420s. So happy 420 to all who celebrate.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too.
Yeah, it's a big day.
Yeah.
It's a big day. It's a good day.
Yeah. It's a good day.
Hmm.
Ice Cube. Feel like Ice Cube would agree. He should. He should maybe come out with an update, a long-awaited update to his song.
Oh yeah, right. Let's write into him.
Yeah.
Let's co-write it with him.
Sure.
It's a start.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's a big day. It's a really big day.
Yeah.
Uh,
And so Biden has weighed in,
oh,
has
he
spoken to
has.
the family. Even risking, I think, weighing in before the verdict was out, which hopefully doesn't have any unintended consequences.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think that's. I don't think that was the best. I don't think that was the best idea. But
Hmm.
because I don't think it's why. I don't think it's like good idea to like interfere with the court process in that way. But nevertheless, um, you know, this is a big turning point.
Yeah.
This is. I mean, again, you know, it's not everything, but it's you know it's this is. I mean, I think this is good cause for cautious optimism. I think this is a really good like
I think it's
you
the
know
first step, you know?
yeah, I do.
And
Um,
so first steps are always a bit tentative and, you know, kind of scary as far as not wanting to put too much into it, but also
right,
recognizing it for what it is.
because you don't want to you don't want to like all of a sudden like start cheering and then it turns out it's a fluke. But
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't necessarily think this will be a fluke. I think this is I think this is good. I think it's 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 good. I think it's good.
Yeah. I also think the way that the courts are set up is it can be used as an, um, what's the word? It can be used as a precedent, you know?
Yeah,
So that's a good thing.
and to be cited in future cases. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was honestly yeah, and I was surprised too. Um, you know, which was and it was something a discussion I'm dog sitting, and it was a discussion that come on, honey, and it was a discussion that I'd had with other people. A couple of other people I knew were like, "Oh my!" When I was saying I was concerned that there might be reasonable doubt. Um, FYI, I mean, I was confident they were going to get him on manslaughter. Like
Hmm.
there's no like that was like that was easy as far as I'm
And
concerned.
that's
Like
that's third degree.
no manslaughter is no mans. That's not third degree. No, that was manslaughter was like the
Second.
that yeah no he was charged with unintentional second degree murder, third degree murder, and manslaughter. And I knew that manslaughter. I knew they would get him on manslaughter because that's like when you that's when you're engaging. That's when you're engaging in an activity, and you are uh, you're hurt. Like you're hurt. Like you're hurting someone, but you don't. But it goes too far, and you don't. It's like when you're getting. It's like almost like getting into a fight with somebody,
Hmm.
and you don't mean to kill them, but you do.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's like an unintentional death. Like I knew I knew that they were. I knew he was going to get convicted on that. Like
Hmm.
the videotape alone. Um, I feel like that was enough. But on the other hand, uh, there were there was they had the Rodney King incident was videotaped, and look what happened there. So that's so I guess there was good cause for skepticism. I was also concerned that there could have been reasonable doubt due to a lot of mitigating circumstances, like the fact that there was a hostile crowd surrounding them, the fact that there was a large amount of drugs in the system at the time of his death. And just, despite the fact that both autopsies deemed George Floyd's death a homicide, there was enough there that a better defense attorney,
Right.
better defense team could have possibly created, reasonable doubt.
So if I get into a fight with you and you have some pre-existing condition I don't know about,
right,
that causes you a greater instance of death than, say, the average person would have had, maybe a good lawyer can use that to my advantage or something, right?
Yeah. And that's essentially why I knew they would get him on, or at least I strongly believe that the manslaughter was easy. That they were going to he would at least get convicted on that, because that's just the clearest definition of manslaughter is like you get into a fist fight with someone and you accidentally kill the person. You're not meaning to actually end their life, but you're getting into a really just heated, the intent to harm, at this point it's in the moment, you're in the heat of the moment, and you're intended to take the other person. You're intended to physically batter the other person until they stop attacking you, and it just goes too far.
So what's second and third?
Okay, well, this is interesting. Second degree murder is when I think it's considered like felony murder. So like you're in the midst of committing a felony and someone dies, and
Okay.
and you act, and it may not even have been intentional. In fact, it frequently isn't, but you're in the midst of committing a crime.
Like a robbery or something?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's considered second degree murder.
The unintended consequences of committing a crime. Crime.
Yes. Third degree murder, I'm a little shakier on.
I think it's non-felony.
It is. It's not. Yes, correct. It's not a felony murder, meaning you are not in the process of committing a crime. But that one is harder for me to define. So let me Google it, because I know, I think again, that was the only other way I'd previously ever been able to determine that is that if it's premeditated, it's first degree murder, right? That's what we all know, is that if you're planning to kill someone and you think it out and go through all that, then that's a first degree murder, and that's the most serious murder charge. Okay. Okay, so let me see. It may include felony murder, but only where the underlying felony is nonviolent, or depraved heart murder, meaning that intent to kill is not element of the offense of third degree murder. Okay, interesting. I'm trying to think of what. All right, let me see. You know what? That's not good enough. All right, let me see. Okay, third degree murder example. Third degree murder is often charged as a depraved heart and mind crime. This charge can arise when a person fires a gun in a crowd without intending to kill anyone, for example. Murder is charged when a person is killed and the defendant has an indifference to the sanctity of human life. Okay. Okay, so it's the unlawful. Okay, right. So it's basically, right, it's non-felony murder. When you do something, it's weird. It's like it's kind of like thin line between just being recklessly indifferent to human life, which it's a very thin line. I'm not exactly clear on the definition.
Kind of thin line between manslaughter and third degree murder.
And third degree murder. It's a really thin line. So but nevertheless, I wasn't positive that they were going to get he was going to get them, but here we are.
Yeah.
And it's really important.
It's quite a place to be in. I turned on YouTube and they said we were in the midst of a live, any moment, they'd be coming back with a verdict, and I went to the bathroom and came back and it seemed like they had a verdict.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah, I know that the one thing that was stated, I think after the president weighed in, was they wanted to make sure the jurors' decision was not weighed by anything that might happen outside, aka, I guess, any protest or any unrest or anything like that. But the way that they worded it was very interesting to me, because it was like they said it in such a way that it was like, your decision will not be weighed by. They said it in such a way that you could say, well, certainly we haven't had just decisions made, and this is a chance to make a just decision. I wish I could remember the exact way that they said it, because it was very interesting. You could easily skew it and say that's actually what we're looking for, is a decision, based on what's been happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you think that was an attempt to sway them to make a decision one way or the other?
No. They were basically saying, make a cold decision based on objectivity only, and don't allow any fear of what's going to happen in the streets to sway you, which I think is important. If I could remember the way that they said it, I'd be able to make my case for why it was an interesting way of saying it, because it's also like,
wow,
the reason that we're here in the first place is because we haven't been able to achieve justice. So it's kind of like, don't let the attempts at addressing injustice help you make yet another decision that impedes justice.
Wow, that's actually I like that. That's almost like reassuring. That's just like, it's almost like they're saying, like, make a decision objectively, and if anything, if people decide to like riot because of this, it's not your fault. Like, you you do the best job you can and render an honest verdict, and that's your job. Like, so that's your job. That's great. And I mean.
And of course,
this is great.
Of course, the fact that we got here, like, even getting this far, did we already get farther than we normally get? Even the fact that there's a trial. The reason I ask is because it appears to me that by the time we got this far, there was overwhelming evidence. So it's like, even saying, hey, don't let those folks outside sway your decision, but it's like, if you need them to sway your decision, then you've got issues going on, right?
Or if they can sway your decision,
or if they can, but it's like the evidence is overwhelming enough that last thing you need is like them to tell you what to do. So it makes me wonder, like, do we usually even get this far in the process?
No, I don't know. I don't know that we always do. I think that there have been times before. But
like, I think the Rodney King one was rare, and it was like what 30 years ago.
Yeah, well, oh my God. Hang on. While I just absorbed that. Yeah, 30, yeah, 30 years.
More than more
It
than
was
30
30
years
years
ago.
ago. It was 30
Yeah,
years ago.
yeah.
And yeah, I mean, and there was a trial there, a big one, but three of the officers were acquitted, and the fourth one was a hung jury. So this is huge. This is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the next conversation folks are going to have, and it's kind of funny. I was watching the Shameless kind of exit interview with a bunch of the actors, and Shameless is they had like 11 seasons, and
the Showtime series. Yeah, I didn't follow that, but
well, it was a
with
great William H. Macy.
right? Yeah,
Yeah, the American version. Great show. And they briefly touched on they briefly touched on police in the show, because one of the characters becomes a police officer, and he's a troubled kid, and he definitely, the structure helps him and stuff, but he ends up using policing. He ends up doing it on his own accord, right? Like he'll stop people with yoga mats or in Mercedes committing an infraction, but he'll let some poor guy on the south side go. Like he'll try to like use it to kind of like restore some balance in his little universe in Chicago. But I noticed the person doing the interviewing kind of skipped over the policing thing and made an inadvertent comment, and I kind of looked at William H. Macy's face, and I was trying to see if he wanted to say something or if he just wanted to play it cool for the interview. But it was one of those like, yeah, this show shows you that some cops are actually good, and it shows like the different sides of policing, and like my first thought was like, we don't find ourselves where we find ourselves because some cops are good and some cops are bad. That's like a very basic way of looking at things. And it's like, we find ourselves here because the system is corrupt to its core. The system's rotten to its core. It's like based on an imbalance of power. It is executed in a way that is like racist, classist, and really also subject to individual biases and prejudices. But like to its core, the system is incorrect, and it's a foul system that actually corrupts the moment you step in there. And if you try to use your individual agency to bring some type of justice or goodness or correctness, you are immediately corrected and subjugated to being disciplined by crossing the blue line or by not falling in line with command. So to kind of do the old, there's good cops and bad cops kind of routine, it's a very basic way of looking at it, and it was like debunked a long time ago. Like
it was debunked a long time ago by who? By what studies?
The study, one of the studies they did in the village, what was that one called?
Village Voice?
Yeah, the Village Voice had several, had a series of articles, and there's been a lot of whistleblowers who have talked about it. I mean, I call it the Serpico effect.
Of course.
But like anyone with any knowledge or intimate knowledge or knowledge of the system knows that like you can't be like some kind of rogue cop and decide to like change an entire system based on your G Willikers, let's do good here kind of attitude. It just doesn't work that way. Anyone who has tried has been disciplined, sometimes in not so nice ways for doing so. But I think that the next reckoning we're gonna have to realize like we have to stop like lying to our citizens and to our children about this kind of stuff. Now, I found it interesting that the police force spoke up and denied, that what he did was what he was trained to do. Yet we're seeing this stuff happen all across the country. And so there's a thing in policing where there is a handbook, and you probably won't find anything that could be of harm like that in the handbook. But then there's also just like, I don't know what they call it, if it's like policy or maybe just procedure that's not like written down that way, but it's like how they handle their day to day. And the procedure that these guys do is like it's uniform. It's like every time you see someone stop, you see the knee on the neck, the knee in the back. You see these guys information doing the same thing, and then some of them are doing different holds, and sometimes you'll see a hold has been made illegal on paper, but the cops will say, well, how else are we supposed to subdue some guy on PCP? And they'll maybe go to some extreme to say why they have to do what they do. But the point is, these procedures are in place, and I'm skeptical, at the very least, that this is like a bad actor doing something that they were told not to do, and that in plain view of other cops and in plain view of the EMS who actually told him to get off of his neck, and in plain view of civilians, this guy decided to use and adhere to a hold that was totally illegal and that he wasn't trained to do. For 9.5 minutes, he decided to use an illegal action and hold, and that his comrades around him were backing him up in some illegal procedure, that these were just rogue cops who decided to, do their own thing that day. I just don't buy it. I just don't buy that these cops decided to take the law into their own hands that day, and that they showed up as rogue cops. I think it's policy and procedure to dismiss them and say, we're not gonna take responsibility for what you did today. Like of course you're not going to. Like, why would you? Right? That's not what they do. But anyways, that's my take. That's my rant on that. That's my take. What do you think?
I think that justice was done today, and I think that when something like this happens, this should be the norm.
Should be the norm, you said?
Yeah, it should be the norm that when something like that, when a police officer kills someone in the line of duty, there should be a full investigation every single time. And I know there always is in one way or another, but it very rarely it seems to me, results in the kind of outcome where they're actually have to answer, like, pay the piper and answer for what they've done. So while I am very happy about today's verdict, I don't think that like cops are like evil by their nature. And I don't think that every single police. I realize that there have been, undoubtedly been instances of police corruption, and like you said, Serpico, who was a hero for exposing it. And corruption should be rooted out, and every single time it happens, and it should be fought. And I think that there are, in some ways, I think that there are instances of it happening within the system. But I don't necessarily subscribe to this view that that this is the norm, that this is like what we just saw is like the definition of what police were trained to do, because I think that police frequently save lives as well. So I think that there is a discussion that needs to take place about what, moving forward, how can we try and stop incidents like this from happening? But yeah, just for the record, I'm not a defund the police person. I'm more of a, because I'm more of a, what actions do we take to decrease the likelihood of this happening? That's my take on this. And I was going to say something else, and now it slipped my mind.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate your take on that. Yeah, I do, and defund is radical. So it's not something that needs to be spoken of every time these situations come up. So I totally get that. Most people are not defund people. They're just not. It's a radical position that has been spoken of in the mainstream. For someone like yourself that wants to see actual change, and that's like saying that you believe cops like save lives and that they're not just that corruption isn't so rampant. I mean, what do you say about the fact that they were so open in the way that they treated this person? And what do you say that we've seen like so many instances of this? Do you think like cops are like going home at night like crafting their own tactics and like saying like, hey,
I don't know,
like look at what I saw on the internet. There's this cool new hold you can do that seems to work pretty well. Let's try this.
I don't know. I have no idea. I can't. I mean, I don't. Is that what you think?
No, I've made public what I think.
Right.
But what I think has been backed up by cops who are whistleblowers and who have exposed their police forces for what they do. I mean, I think there's a common sense element to this. I mean, when you see the demeanor of Chauvin and his fellow cops around him, these are not people who are like nervous about what they're doing. And these are not people who are like, hiding their faces or like telling people to get the fuck out of here so that they can't see what they're doing. These are people that are very comfortable in their element. I mean, this guy's like, talking and laughing and hanging out while his knee is on this guy's neck.
No, it's just he deserves to go. He deserves to be in jail for the rest of his life. I mean, that's not what I'm getting at though, and that's a big problem. Like, it's not about he deserves anything.
like we're just like claiming this guy is like this guy was this comfortable because he's a psychopath. Like, no, the point that I'm getting at is the reason that he's so comfortable doing this is because this is what he was trained to do. And the cops around him are just as comfortable because that's what they were trained to do. Right? So like the problem is the training itself, and the problem is the whole you can't go against the blue line, right? You can't be some kind of like hero and say, "Hey, this is wrong." Like that's not you're not going to get anywhere for doing that. You're just going to get in trouble. So I think we have to be brave enough to call the system into question. Doesn't mean you have to defund. Even if you need to reform the hell out of it, we have to ask ourselves.
No, I agree. I agree with you.
Yeah, that's my point. And so like I don't, he needs to go to jail for X amount of time. Like that's fine. Like that's fine. He did a bad thing, but that's just not enough, right? Like he's a drop in the bucket, and more people are going to apply to his position, and they're going to be in this under the same system that produced this guy. And until we call into question the police commissioners and the police chiefs and whatever higher ups are using whatever forms of training and
Totally agree.
documents they're
Totally agree.
using, yeah, that's my issue. Is
Yeah,
that we need to,
we're in agreement.
yeah,
Yeah, we're in agreement. I absolutely think this should be investigated. Yeah, we're absolutely in agreement on that. We're absolutely in agreement on that.
yeah. If you ever get a chance, check out I wish I knew like the name of the particular investigation to tell you, but I'm sure it's pretty easy to
Oh, that's
Google
okay. I mean,
village.
the blue wall is famous. It's all
Yeah,
like, cops back each other up no matter what happens, even if you, yeah.
yeah. The Village Voice one was quite shocking because well, shocking is a weird word. The Village Voice one was illuminating because it showed you like some conversations, and it showed you like what happened as a result of this cop trying to go against the grain, and it actually had an unexpected result on myself. And this was back at a time when I had been illegally stopped and frisked right like
Mhm.
outside of my home. um it gave it the unexpected response that it gave me was I almost felt bad for the individual cops in the system because they have nothing, they have no recourse. Like they don't have any agency. You can't just like decide that this is how you're going to do it, right? A lot of people go in there like Mr. Smith goes to Washington, I'm going to change the system, and it's like a joke that you think you can do that. um and here we are, and we have folks behaving much differently than they ever thought they would, like on their first day, while they're paired with, you know, a senior officer.
I
Um,
also, yeah. Also, I
yeah,
also do know somebody who used to be a police officer, and then that person's experiences inspired them to go to law school and become a defense attorney. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's definitely great when people
yeah,
use those experiences and
it's yeah.
do good
So,
things with them. How
mhm.
long were they a police officer for?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, yeah. Well, it'll be
Um,
interesting what Kamala has to say about this, if she'll
yeah.
get deep into it at all,
I'll
or
bet. Yeah, that is interesting. That would be interesting to hear what she has to say.
yeah, because I mean, I'm not with the cynical crowd, so I think it'd be an interesting. Someone mentioned that this is like a moment where we have to do the hard work of healing now, and it would be interesting to hear what she felt about this situation. I had another unexpected response to to the verdict today, and as I was looking at Chauvin, um, I want to say this without coming off the wrong way, but I almost felt I almost felt bad for him. Not in the sense that like bad for him, like gee, it's going to be really hard for him,
Mhm.
or he got the full extent of the law here. But I almost felt I almost felt bad because it's like this person did not. I don't know. I just I see this a little bit differently. This person did not like create the circumstances which led to this. We kind of, I mean, we all have as a society because we've let this happen again and again and again and again. B, the police as a force and an entity, it's been allowed to like run rampant and do horrible things to our community. But C, it's like no matter what they do, no matter what his sentence is, it's not going to like bring back George Floyd, you know, and
Mhm.
his family's still going to have to deal with that. So I just really hope that this isn't just some symbolic victory, but like that phrase they kept using, the MLK phrase that the arc of justice is long but bends,
Mhm.
or the arc of what is it, the
Hang on.
justice is a long something about a long arc that bends
The
towards
arc of the
justice.
moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Yeah.
Right, right. So that's quite a visual that really made me think. And it's a beautiful visual.
Hmm.
um I kind of wonder what we can do to make it bend quicker and bend more, but it's a thing.
Yeah.
But those were some of the thoughts I felt. I didn't know what to think of them, but I just I'm looking at this guy and I'm like, are we going to use this as an opportunity for good, or are we going to
Hmm.
like pat ourselves on the back for sentencing this guy?
Um, it was, yeah. So what's so interesting, what here's I don't place really much faith in polls anymore, but I guess well, actually no, that's about like who you're voting for president, because I don't trust those polls. But the weird thing is that this came up more than once after last summer. People were sharing this on on Facebook and like, did you see this? Did you the Newsweek article from last summer about the this was like a couple of months after George Floyd was killed, and the survey that Black Americans took regarding police officers? Did you see this?
No.
Okay, because all right, in the poll they said, okay, here's the thing. The poll found the biggest racial. This is in Newsweek, so fairly mainstream organization, mainstream media outlet. Here's the thing. Only 18% of Black Americans said they felt very confident that local police would treat them with courtesy and respect during an interaction, a number vastly lower than the national average. Contrasting that, 56% of the white Americans polled, 56% of them said they felt very confident they would be treated with courtesy and respect. Obviously, so suggesting there's an evidence of racial bias during police interactions. Yet the funny thing about that is that according to the same poll, 81% of Black Americans in this Gallup poll said they wanted police to either spend the same amount or more time in their community. Only 19% voted for less.
Hmm.
I don't really know what to make of that.
I've got some
It's
ideas.
it's not my experience. Obviously, it's not my experience. I can't speak to, so I can't speak to that.
Yeah.
But okay, so what are your ideas? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, the nature of polls, uh, you're asking kind of like one-dimensional questions, right? You're not like getting to the nature of solutions, right? You're just asking
Right.
someone like a flat question.
Right.
Do you want this? Do you want that? Do you want that? Do you want this? Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, we don't. Most of us don't feel confident that we're going to be treated the way that we should based on our history of not being treated the way that we should by cops.
Yeah.
And this goes for cops uh, from different backgrounds as well. We learned our lesson a long time ago that we're not going to get fairer treatment from black cops.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
However, if you go to a community and you want it to be safe, you want there to be some kind of presence there that you know of that can make it safe, and barring any education or evidence of alternatives to do so, that's like, yeah, sure, put more cops in the community. I mean, I've heard of, I think most people have heard of this by now, by simply parking a police car on a street, you severely curb crime, like in that immediate area. So if you have to do that instead, so that we're not messed with, then maybe that's an alternative. Or maybe if you get into literal community policing, where like you have people from the neighborhood kind of helping out and
Neighborhood watch.
Doing like an advanced version of neighborhood watch where you're actually getting involved helping people, then maybe you do that. But barring any knowledge of alternatives, in a poll, people are going to say, put more police in the neighborhood.
Okay. All right.
Now, if you do your poll crafty, that's the shady nature of polls. Don't get me started on polls. I don't want to.
Yeah, no, I'm not a big fan of them either.
I've seen polls in certain places that I don't want to discuss right now, but it's kind of upset me in certain ways where I really felt manipulated. But if you want to put in your poll, if there were an alternative to making your neighborhood safe, such as an effective neighborhood watch, et cetera, and find a way to craft that into the question, you might get a different response, right?
Right.
So, I think that's interesting. I think that has to be taken into account.
No, I hear you. No, that's a great point. I think it does too. I was just trying to figure out I just couldn't, I mean, I couldn't wrap my brain around it, that this idea that like the community was by and large convinced that they were not going to be treated respectfully, but at the same time, they wanted the same or more police presence in it. So do you know what, I was just like, well, that I couldn't figure that out. So I was just, I had no idea.
It's a dilemma.
Yeah, I couldn't understand. Like I didn't understand why they would want a larger presence of a community of.
I'll be back in a sec.
Right. That's it. But I just couldn't.
Remind me to hit pause.
And thank you, and just thanks for engaging in that line of dialogue with me, because I mean, God knows. For me on my end, I know the optics of what it's like, someone asking like a person of a certain demographic, why do people of this demographic, blah, 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 blah. So I usually don't like going down that line of dialogue, because it only, serves to highlight, that only just emphasizes like the differences between people, or the differences that have been like unfairly like created by like certain society. And the thing is, well, there's like, there's only one, like, we're all humans, we're all in this together, like, skin color and ethnicity shouldn't divide us. And by asking that, I know that I'm playing into that, and I don't really want to, but I recalled that. So
yeah, you being you're fine, because I know where you're coming from, and all of that. I find that any group can be looked upon as having those type of dichotomies of like,
right,
why we're doing this and we're looking for this, and
I know. And again, not to play into that assumption, it's just because, like, again, to play into the assumption, like, which I don't, and I don't like doing this, but this is like, oh, hold on, let me, like, here's this poll came up about Black people. Let me go ask a Black person why this is like happening, because I don't know, because I can't figure it out myself. But do you know what I mean? But again, I don't like, again, I'm loath to do that, but we're on the subject, and the subject is unavoidable, and it's everywhere. And this is a big moment. And I just remember thinking to myself, I couldn't figure out why, like that, like it was like almost like a contradiction, but but again, I could not figure out for me why those two contradictory responses would like exist. But again,
what we're really highlighting is the need for alternatives to exist.
Yes.
So whether or not we like the words defund or not, my nurse friends can tell you how much more skillful they are in de-escalating situations than cops are, especially when it comes to people who may be struggling with mental health issues or anger issues and things like that. How these friends of mine deal with folks in that community every day, and they successfully deal with these people, and they don't shoot or put these people in a headlock or cause them harm. They de-escalate every single day very successfully, and these people could be utilized in our communities to de-escalate and help, rather than people who have not been trained, who are high on testosterone, and who are not held to higher standards of treating people a certain way in our community. One thing that I liked, and probably help if I remembered what news station I was watching. It, I don't know. It could have been CBS or something. But I liked that the news anchor specifically mentioned instances she had covered where a white guy pointed a gun at the cops, and they went out of their way to bring him into custody.
I know, no, it's insane. It's outrageous. Like it's outrageous, and it's infuriating. And I mean, all you need to do is look at Dylan Roof and realize there's just something so, it needs to be, it needs to be questioned. And as much as I try to be like make changes and move on and move forward, and try not to dwell on this, like the sins of the past, because I feel like if you stay looking back, you can't move forward. When incidents like Dylan Roof and the Holmes kid in Colorado happened, where they just like totally murdered a bunch of people but get brought in without incident, and then compare that to these incidents, it's almost like it's almost even though I'm not an abolish the police guy. Again, it's hard not to think of or just be recalled of the fact that the police as we know it started as slave catchers. So And not enough of that has been purged from it. Like, it just hasn't been. And so
certainly
we have to get rid of that line of thinking and not look at it as anything different.
Right. And I guess the question is, how do we do that?
By not prejudging people by the color of their skin, like, you know, to just don't make an assumption that.
Wait. Oh, you mean person by person? I mean, how do we?
No, literally. I mean, like, by like what, like, it would almost seems to me that the police are trained to react to non-white people differently than
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So how do we change that, is what I'm saying.
I don't know. I mean, I could suggest something out of the, I could suggest, and again, moments like this where I could play the idealist and be like, well, all we have to do is this and this and this, but I have no, it doesn't mean that it's going to be that easy to implement.
Sure. Well, no, I mean, that's certainly a start. Figuring out what's going wrong is the fact that, like, they're trained to, like, react differently. That's a big problem.
Yeah.
And it goes across the board. Like, the fear of Black people is so deep-rooted that if you put someone in a simulation, whether they're a cop or not, and you show different perpetrators, everyone is more likely to shoot at the Black folks more than everyone else.
Wasn't there just a Black guy in the military who got pulled over and arrested or something? Or
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, worse than that, there's been Black cops who have been beaten by other cops.
Yeah.
And then they apologize when they realize he was a cop. It's like, that's what you're apologizing for? It's the fact that this person is a cop? Oh, sorry, we didn't realize you were one of us.
Yeah.
But I think, personally, if you can prove that during psychological testing, most people will fire upon, Black, will fire upon Black people more, or, what's the word? A Black suspect more, based on just the way that we're wired. I think you're going to have to start questioning, whether or not we can handle lethal weapons if we're pre-wired to make those type of decisions.
It's interesting. I once saw a video, I don't remember where, but it was a guy who had been trained in the military, and then he became a police officer, and he was kind of shocked at how some police were really just not really prepared in a way to like subdue violent people without using force.
Yes.
And he was shocked because he said that his military training gave him the discipline to control situations without having to use it right away. And so he was able to he was able, like his combat training, he was able to like subdue people without resorting to weapons.
Absolutely.
And a lot of them were just not able to do that, and so they had to pull it. Like, so there was.
You mean physically subdue them?
Yeah, he was able to physically subdue them because of his military training, and because his martial arts training that he had to go through, and because of that, it gave him the confidence to know that he could go into like potentially violent situations and that he was able, and I think he said he never even pulled his gun.
There's major consequences for soldiers pulling their weapons.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, besides filling out a bunch of paperwork, they have to justify why they've done it.
Yep.
And these are people who are in combat situations.
Yep.
Where they have enemies who are hidden, who are trying to get at them. And they are less apt to pull their weapons. So the moment I hear about a soldier, in a cop situation, I mean, I kind of feel like I feel a lot more comfortable around soldiers, just on their training and background.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So because I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's something that needs to be required. I don't know.
Well, certainly the training.
I think that, I mean, maybe that might be, that could be helpful, because if you are otherwise a not very physically confident person, but you have a gun and, and you are nervous about walking into a situation that could potentially turn violent, but you don't know how to resolve it, because without using a deadly weapon, because these things do happen on the force all the time.
Well, there's another big issue here too.
It's so weird though, because most encounters with the police don't end violently.
Yeah. Well, the police have a very small chance of the instances of police dying on the job versus killing a civilian. It's like very small. I think the last stat that I saw was like 89 police dying a year, but only 44 of those were like
in the line of duty.
Yeah, like not friendly fire or something, versus like, well over 1,000. Whatever it was just like infinitely small. The number of cops dying in the line of duty compared to the number of civilians.
I mean, well, last year apparently was. Last year there was a huge increase in the number of police officers killed. It was like 200. Yeah, I mean, even CNN said it was like 2020 was the deadliest year for law enforcement officers in a long, long time. It was 264 officers were killed. Hold on a second.
Yeah, it was probably.
Well, I want to make sure.
The year before.
Hold on a second. Oh my. Okay. No. All right. More than half of that was attributed to to coronavirus. Okay.
Yeah, and then you got to break those numbers down, because
All right. Yeah, okay. So because, I mean, yeah, okay, that's, then we should need to, okay, then we need to rule out the ones who were, yeah.
Yeah, because the one that I saw, it was a weird breakdown. It was like,
Yeah, okay, so
it was
all right,
like
40, okay, yeah, 48 officers were actually shot and killed on the job last
exactly.
year. Yeah, okay.
And
That's all right.
what were the other numbers?
That's a little, okay.
What were the other numbers?
Not that that's not serious and tragic, but that's paints a different picture.
Yeah.
Okay, so 30 of them were killed by a handgun, 13 were killed by a rifle, and one was killed with their own weapon. The type of weapon, right? The type of weapon used in the other 4 deaths is not yet okay.
What were the other numbers?
You mean of what they died from? I mean, there was
the two, yeah, of the 200. So
half of those
were COVID.
Yeah, and then
accidents, right?
Yeah,
Car
a
accidents?
lot of traffic accidents. Yeah.
Okay. See, so it's more deadly to be a garbage truck driver than it is to be a cop, and most of that is because of accidents. There's actually lots of jobs that are deadlier than being a cop.
Yeah.
So we gotta find a way to think about how it's being used to justify hurting other people.
Yeah, it should never be used to yeah. Never it should no, it should never be used to justify hurting other people ever. Yeah. Oh, Kamala Harris is speaking right now.
Mm.
Shall I unmute it?
Sure.
His work is long overdue. America has a long history of systemic racism. Black Americans and Black men in particular have been treated throughout the course of our history as less than human. Black men are fathers and brothers and sons and uncles and grandfathers and friends and neighbors. Their lives must be valued in our education system, in our healthcare system, in our housing system, in our economic system, in our criminal justice system, in our nation. Full stop. Because of smartphones, so many Americans have now seen the racial injustice that Black Americans have lived for generations. The racial injustice that we have fought for generations, that my parents protested in the 1960s, that millions of us, Americans of every race, protested last summer. Here's the truth about racial injustice. It is not just a Black America problem or a people of color problem. It is a problem for every American. It is keeping us from fulfilling the promise of liberty and justice for all. And it is holding our nation back from realizing our full potential. We are all a part of George Floyd's legacy. And our job now is to honor it and to honor him. Thank you. And now it is my great honor to introduce the President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Today, a jury in Minnesota found former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin guilty on all counts of the murder of George Floyd last May. It was a murder in the full light of day, and it ripped the blinders off for the whole world to see. The systemic racism the Vice President just referred to. There's systemic racism is a stain on our nation's soul. The knee on the neck of justice for Black Americans. Profound fear and trauma. The pain, the exhaustion that Black and brown Americans experience every single day. The murder of George Floyd launched a summer of protest we hadn't seen since the civil rights era in the 60s. Protests that unified people of every race and generation with peace and with purpose to say enough, enough, enough of this senseless killings. Today's verdict is a step forward. I just spoke with the governor of Minnesota, thanked me for the close work with his team. And I also spoke with George Floyd's family again. A remarkable family of extraordinary courage. Nothing can ever bring their brother or their father back. But this can be a giant step forward in the march toward justice in America. Let's also be clear, such a verdict is also much too rare. For so many people, it seems like it took a unique and extraordinary convergence of factors. A very young woman with a smartphone camera, a crowd who was traumatized witnesses, a murder that lasts almost 10 minutes in broad daylight, probably the whole world to see. Officers standing up and testifying against a fellow officer instead of just closing ranks, which should be commended. A jury who heard the evidence carried out their civic duty in the midst of an extraordinary moment, under extraordinary pressure. For so many, it feels like it took all.
Can you hear this?
Yeah.
The system to deliver a just basic accountability. You saw how traumatic and exhausting just watching the trial was for so many people. Think about it, those of you who are listening. Think about how traumatic it was for you. You weren't there. You didn't know any of the people. It was difficult, especially for the witnesses who had to relive that day. It's a trauma. On top of the fear so many people of color live with every day when they go to sleep at night and pray for the safety of themselves and their loved ones. Again, as we saw in this trial from the fellow police officers who testified, most men and women who wear the badge serve their communities honorably. But those few who fail to meet that standard must be held accountable, and they were today. One was. No one should be above the law. And today's verdict sends that message. But it's not enough. We can't stop here. In order to deliver real change and reform, we can and we must do more to reduce the likelihood that tragedy like this will ever happen and occur again. To ensure that Black and brown people, or anyone, that they don't fear the interactions with law enforcement, that they don't have to wake up knowing that they can lose their very life in the course of just living their life. They don't have to worry about whether their sons or daughters will come home after a grocery store run, or just walking down the street, or driving the car, playing in the park, or just sleeping at home. And this takes acknowledging and confronting head-on systemic racism and the racial disparities that exist in policing and in our criminal justice system more broadly. You know, state and local government and law enforcement needs to step up. Federal government. That's why I've appointed the leadership of the Justice Department that I have, that is fully committed to restoring trust between law enforcement and the community they are sworn to serve and protect. I have complete confidence in the Attorney General, General Garland's leadership and commitment. I've also nominated two key Justice Department nominees, Vanita Gupta and Kristen Clark, for eminently qualified, highly respected lawyers who have spent their entire careers fighting to advance racial equity and justice. Vanita and Kristen had the experience and the skill necessary to advance our administration's priorities to root out unconstitutional policing and reform our criminal justice system, and they deserve to be confirmed. We also need Congress to act. George Floyd was murdered almost a year ago. There's meaningful police reform legislation in his name. We just heard the Vice President speak of it. She helped write it. Legislation to tackle systemic misconduct in police departments, to restore trust between law enforcement and the people they're entrusted to serve and protect. But it shouldn't take a whole year to get this done. My conversations with the Floyd family, I spoke with them again today. I assured them we're going to continue to fight for the passage of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, so I can sign the law as quickly as possible. There's more to do. Finally, it's the work we do every day to change hearts and minds as well as laws and policies. That's the work we have to do. Only then will full justice and full equality be delivered to all Americans. And that's what I just discussed with the Floyd family. A guilty verdict does not bring back George. But through the family's pain, they're finding purpose. So George's legacy will not be just about his death, but about what we must do in his memory. I also spoke to Gianna, George's young daughter again. I met her last year. I've said this before at George's funeral. I told her how brave I thought she was. And I started to melt down and hold her hand. He said, Daddy's looking down on you, he's so proud. He said to me then, I'll never forget it, Daddy changed the world. I told him this afternoon, Daddy did change the world. Let that be his legacy, a legacy of peace, nonviolence, and justice. Peaceful expression without legacy are inevitable and appropriate. The violent protest is not. And there are those who will seek to exploit the raw emotions of the moment. There's an extremist who have no interest in social justice, who seek to carry out violence, destroy property, fan the flames of hate and division, who do everything in their power to stop this country's march toward racial justice. We can't let them succeed. This is a time for this country to come together, to unite as Americans. There can never be any safe harbor for hate in America. I've said it many times, the battle for soul of this nation has been constant push and pull for more than 240 years.
What do you think? Are you going to listen to more of this, or?
War between the American.
Yeah, no, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, no, well, here, okay, I'm here, I'm back.
Okay.
It's nice. What they're saying is nice.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, you know, well, no, I mean, I think that what they're both saying is responsible and very. I mean, I liked what they both had to say, but but again, those are just words.
Yeah.
So,
Do you think it was necessary to mention rioting when we got the response that folks wanted? Like, do you think that there was any reason to mention that? I mean, it's almost like tempting people, or like reminding people that that's an option. Like I think for the most part, like, I mean, if they had gotten, the reverse verdict, I think, you know, he would have to say something, but it's
Right.
kind of weird to still say something.
Yeah. 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 Almost like there was a chance that a slim chance it could have happened anyway, in spite
Right.
of, yeah, I don't, yeah, it's interesting. I don't, yeah, yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what that was about. Yeah. Um, or even just yeah, even just the implication of that, like, that's not who we are. We're better than this. Like, we can't, like, afford to, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't, yeah, yeah. Um, um, I don't know. Better safe than sorry? Question mark. Yeah, I don't know. I have no. There's no.
Yeah, I mean, my brain doesn't think like I safer than what, like,
Yeah.
what does that make us safe from? Like people who are like on the fence, people who are like, well, I have all this riot gear, and
I know, right?
I'm like 50-50 about whether or not I still want to go out. But
Yeah,
president mentioned that it would suck of us to do this, so
I know. Yeah,
yeah,
I know.
I'll just smoke some more weed instead.
Yeah. I'm sure that's exactly the, yeah, the thought process. I don't know. Yeah, yeah. It was I don't know why. I don't know why he said it. I don't know. Um, what do you?
I don't know. I mean, it kind of.
Do you feel like it was playing too much into racial stereotypes?
Well, I wasn't gonna go that deep with it. I just think it's like it's kind of playing into power dynamics. Like you're the powerful president, so you have to mention, hey, and like, it's good that we did this thing that we did back in the civil rights days, but let's
Yeah.
just, not riot because that's not cool. And it's
Okay.
like, all right, Grandpa, nobody was gonna riot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like we got the we got the verdict we were looking for. Well, okay, you guys just be good tonight.
I know.
Don't be out
No,
there rioting.
I know. I know. Exactly. I know. It was weird. It's just like, yeah. So, yeah, you don't have to. Like things worked out for you. You don't have to go looting. You don't have to go, like, burn down any, like, burn down any shops.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So yeah. So I'm expecting y'all to, like, yeah, to, like, stay home and yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's, yeah, that was a little strange. But yeah, I otherwise, yeah, it's funny. I guess it's all the more strange because I feel like I hadn't noticed anything else that, like, stood out as being a little odd in that speech.
Right.
So it was kind of like, oh, you had to throw that in there. And I almost didn't even notice it, but yeah.
No, the only other thing that I always notice is Kamala always seems kind of boring to me. She's just like,
Yeah.
I don't know, dispassionate.
I think that I think she may be suffering from that polarizing view of her. So she's being encouraged to
Be as vanilla as possible.
yeah, so as not to potentially offend or upset anybody.
It sounds like the Democrats. It sounds like the Democrats as a whole.
Yeah. But yeah, but not everybody. No, I mean they're not. I mean they're not. They don't all like.
Oh wait, sorry, one sec.
All right.
All right,
Yeah.
where were we?
I mean, I think we were. Yeah, just discussing that one comment that Biden made, but aside
yeah.
from that, yeah. Thanks for inviting me to do this tonight.
Yeah, thanks for coming through.
Yeah, totally.
Have you ever been on the Have you ever been on Stereo? On Stereo app?
Yeah, you and I have done a couple of conversations on
yes,
that together,
yes,
and I would love to do more of those. I actually do have to get going.
Okay. Cool.
But I really appreciate this. I felt like this was powerful and relevant.
Yeah, it was. I mean, this is the first time that we've been here, so yeah, this is a historic moment.
And I really enjoyed this conversation. And I feel like I feel like I learned some things from it, and
Cool.
I appreciate you inviting me on. I wish I had time to stay. I wish I had more time to say. I wish I could do these more often with you. I would like to do these more often with you. I'm just surprised at how crazy my schedule is these days, but I am so
thanks for
happy.
squeezing me in. I definitely appreciate it.
No, my God, I'm so happy I mean, listen, considering what happened, I was like, yeah, I absolutely want to do this. Like, it's too important not to do something.
Yeah.
But I'm also getting my second shot on Thursday, and then a couple of weeks after that, I'm looking forward to like going out and seeing you all again. So
yeah, man, let's plan on doing something.
It's definitely in the works. I miss you, man. Thanks for doing this tonight. I would love to do another show with you soon. I mean, I'm surprised that nobody else jumped at this, but yeah, I guess who knows what everybody's schedule is like right now. But
well, hey, listen, I'll kind of jump the gun on a little surprise. I don't know. I may have let the cat out of the bag, but Joey's going to be my roommate pretty soon.
Who?
Joey.
Really?
Yeah. So, yeah. So, I've gotten my second shot already. And as of yesterday, I was 2 weeks clear of the second shot where you're supposed to be good after 2 weeks. So it'll be me and Joey here. And if we can rendezvous somewhere, that'll be great.
Or if you feel comfortable having me in your home after I've been twice vaccinated.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, for sure.
Up to you. I mean, that would probably be safer than. I mean, well, no, actually,
that would be safer because Joey's will have had his second one by then too.
That's true, but actually, no. I mean, it's also then we should be fine. But also, walking around outside, depending on where we are, but if there's enough space, that's supposed to be good too.
True. Yeah, walking around outside. There's a little park. There's a little park.
That's that would be
not
good.
too far.
But
it's kind of like
Either way, I would be delighted. Cool. Always a pleasure.
Yep. Good to see you.
Good to see you, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, talk to you soon.